Welcome to the Due Diligence Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and for more than 10 years with SNN, I've been doing interviews with MicroCap management teams at investor conferences globally as well as online. Our SNN Live CEO video interviews are meant to pique interest, and then one can discover more by going to that company website. But personally, I always have more questions I want to ask. On this show, I'll be chatting with public company executives from microcap companies, and we'll dive deeper into companies that are rarely profiled. Microcap traditionally is overlooked, unloved, and absolutely never featured on legacy financial media outlets unless something material is going on that's a good story. With my experience interviewing management teams, having interviewed most of them before, I've built up a network of companies, so there will be no shortage of content. Furthermore, this is an opportunity for me to showcase some of the qualitative lessons I've learned from guests on the Planet MicroCap podcast. You can expect high-quality interviews with management teams that may have exposure to broader macro trends that you may never have thought of. One of the many reasons why I love the microcap space. So if you love microcaps and especially love learning about companies before the professionals do, let's start our due diligence. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast. My guest on the show today is Larry Heaton. He is the CEO of Zomedica. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is ZOM on the NYSE American. Zomedica is a veterinary health company creating therapeutic and diagnostic products for companion animals. The company engages in the development and commercialization of the TRUFORMA platform, which offers point-of-care diagnostic products for disease states in dogs and cats, and PulseVet, which provides for treatment of various musculoskeletal issues such as broken bones, tendonitis, and torn ligaments in horses and small animals. Zomedica has collaboration agreements with Celsee Inc. for the development and commercialization of liquid biopsy assays and related consumables for the detection of cancer in companion animals, and Seraph Biosciences Inc. for development and markets a novel pathogen detection system. According to a 2018 research report by Grandview Research, and I quote here, the global pet care market size was estimated at USD $131.7 billion in 2016 and is expected to grow with a CAGR of 4.9% from 2016 to 2025, end quote. Furthermore, a 2021 ASPCA report noted that, end quote here, 23 million American households acquired a pet during the COVID-19 crisis, end quote. I've seen Zomedica at many financial conferences. However, this is my first conversation with newly appointed CEO Larry Heaton, who started this position in the company in October 2021. And I wanted to hear his thoughts since joining the company, how the company is addressing the pet care market, as well as their full slate of diagnostic and therapeutic products, how to evaluate which assays to bring on board, regulatory differences between human and animal health markets, and their capital allocation strategy. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with Larry Heaton, CEO of Zomedica. Welcome, everyone, to the Due Diligence Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Kraft. You can follow me on Twitter at Bobby K. Kraft. That's BOBBYKKRAFT. And joining me today is Larry Heaton. He's the CEO of Zomedica. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is ZOM on the NYSE American. Larry, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. Now, I've seen Zomedica present at many events over the years. I'm familiar with the story a little bit, but for those who may not be following Zomedica, I always like to start off each podcast with that one line that the company does. So can you give us that one line about the company?
Sure. So at Zomedica, we market therapeutic and diagnostic products that enable veterinarians to improve the quality of care for the pet patients that they treat, and also benefit the pet parents and the vet practice itself.
Very good. Can you provide us an overview and history of the company? What I know you just joined recently, but what was that original problem Zomedica was looking to solve, and how has that evolved or changed over time?
Yeah, sure. So Zomedica was originally incorporated as Zomedica Pharmaceuticals Corporation with the intention of developing drugs specifically for animal patients. Once the company got deep into that effort, they realized that this market, these patients were actually well served by existing animal health pharmaceutical companies, and actually mostly by veterinarians using human health drugs to treat animals. So at that point, they evolved Zomedica's mission to focus on diagnostic instruments that can provide a lab result necessary for diagnoses at the point of care within about 20 minutes, providing the veterinarian with results while the animal was still in the clinic. They recognized a significant benefit to the pet of a faster time to diagnosis, which allowed treatment to begin earlier. And they also saw the benefit to the pet parent by not having to return to the clinic to get the follow-up results of the lab and then the treatment to be begun. And so the practice also benefited from the economics as well. And so from then, the company began to focus on diagnostic products and other potential products. And the key is that they want to benefit the veterinarian, the pet parent, and most importantly, the pet.
Got it. What were your initial thoughts about the business before you came aboard? Because I'm sure you had seen it out there a little bit, but then, as the talks were going on, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so having spent my career up until now in the human health area, I had a bit of a misconception about just how large and well-developed the animal healthcare market is. It's proven to be populated by dedicated, committed, professional people that care just as much about the customers and the patients that they serve as in human health. Now, I will admit that I was taken a little by surprise when I visited vet clinics, just as I previously would visit physician offices, and heard the patients barking. Not something I was used to. But in every other respect, I think that there are really much more similarities than there are differences between the two marketplaces.
I mean, look, let's be real. There's been some physician offices you've gone to where you did hear some barking. Let's be real, right? Like that's, you never know.
Could have been.
So you, as I've already alluded to, you were recently appointed CEO in October 2021. What originally attracted you to Zomedica, and how has that original thesis for joining change or evolve over time? I mean, it hasn't been that long, but it could have changed.
Yeah, not much more than 100 days in. I joined in October of 21, as you said, because I felt, frankly, I could make a difference for the company, its customers, and its shareholders. There's an old saying that goes, a good idea is a job half done. I felt like Zomedica had some really good ideas for the market and a substantial war chest of capital, about $271 million when I joined. I also saw, though, that it needed a team to bring those good ideas to fruition. And that's an area that I felt I could contribute in. And so I felt I was the right person for the job.
Tell us a little bit more about your background, actually. What were some of the events in your career that prepared you to take on this role at Zomedica?
Sure. So I began my career in a medical device market with a company called US Surgical. Later, it was Covidien and then Medtronic. That we pioneered surgical stapling, and then we pioneered minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery for general and thoracic surgeons. I was there over 18 years. I eventually ran a company as a business unit for Tyco Healthcare, which then became Covidien. And I saw a tremendous amount of innovation and growth and product launches, most successful, some not so much, but was able to learn from both. Since then, I've led companies in diagnostics and therapeutics, both private and public, mostly from a startup phase, but also a couple that were in need of a turnaround. Zomedica has all the ingredients in place, I think, to make for a very successful company. I have experience in leading companies large and small. I have experience in launching both de novo products, brand new products to the marketplace, and also products against established competitors. I also have experience with mergers and acquisition, having acquired product lines and companies and executing their integration. So all that experience, I thought, led me to this opportunity to do some of each of those things to good effect here at Zomedica.
Got it. All right, so let's dive deeper into the business itself right now. What are the company's full slate of products and services, and how is what Zomedica is selling unique and different compared to your peers?
Sure. So currently we're marketing in two areas, diagnostics and more recently therapeutics. Our diagnostic platform is the TRUFORMA system that can provide a diagnostic result within about 20 minutes. We offer the instrument to the clinic today with no capital outlay required through our customer appreciation program, and they purchase the individual assay cartridges to run the tests. We currently offer only 3 assays, but it includes the only feline optimized test for thyroid stimulated hormone, TSH, available anywhere. We'll soon be launching another unique test, this one for endogenous ACTH, in the second quarter. And we intend to continuously develop and launch additional assays, many of which will be unique to the TRUFORMA platform. On the therapeutic side, we recently acquired PulseVet, which is the worldwide market leader in shockwave therapy for equine patients. Their treatment promotes rapid post-surgical healing, addresses lameness, soreness, tendon injuries, and osteoarthritis, among a number of other things. With the launch recently of an accessory product that makes the treatment applicable to the small animal market, we're now busy rolling this out to clinics in the US and several international locations as well.
Great. And to follow up with all that, how would you say, on both the diagnostics and the therapeutic side, you would say Zomedica is unique and different compared to your peers?
Well, in the case of the TRUFORMA assay system, we're providing that instrument at with no capital required up front, as opposed to other systems that may require them to purchase the device. We're taking the long view there and looking at the total lifetime economic value of the customer. The other thing is that some of our assays are truly unique. You can't get a feline optimized TSH test for your cat anywhere, not in clinic, not in a reference lab, not anywhere. So it is a function of both our business model and our presentation to the customer, as well as to the uniqueness of certain products that we're developing. With respect to PulseVet, it is the market leader for a reason, and the reason is that it's highly effective. There are, I think, one of the big differentiating factors is that there are other products out there that resemble shockwave therapy, but there's none that have the clinical evidence dating back years that shows the mechanism of action and the true efficacy as well as the safety of the products.
Got it. And so I wanted to follow up on both sides, and specifically to the diagnostic side. How do you evaluate which assays that you might consider wanting to bring on board? And then also, why is the company focused on the assays it currently has right now?
So with respect to the assays, there's sort of a decision that needs to be made around, and a balance that needs to be struck between those assays that are highly differentiated and unique and provide something new to the clinic that they can't get elsewhere. That's a tremendous motivation to bring that particular system in. But of course, the more unique and differentiated that they are, the less likely that there is existing usage for those. And so that usage starts slow and is built with clinical education efforts. That's why we do webinars, and we sponsor presentations at trade shows. We sponsor clinical research to build those over time. On the other side are assays that are more commonly used. Our other 2 assays that are available today are total T4 and cortisol, which are used much more often. And so we like to strike a balance between those assays that will maybe get us in the door because you can't get those anywhere else. And then once you have the machine and you're using it for that, very proprietary assay, then you have everything you need to run the additional, more higher volume assays as well. So as we move forward, we utilize market research to identify existing usage of assays, and we look for gaps in the marketplace so that customers see that they're getting something that's going to provide true unique value. And then as they appreciate the benefits of it, then they're off and running.
Got it. And do normally develop them in-house, or do you also look at various acquisitions out there?
So we have a unique collaboration with Qorvo Biotechnologies, which is a subsidiary of Qorvo. Qorvo developed the bulk acoustic wave sensor, which is the fundamental driver of the accuracy of our devices. We provide reference lab quality accuracy at the point of care. There are other machines out there that are able to provide in-clinic diagnostics, but they're not so accurate. And so oftentimes they need to be sent out to external labs or reference labs. So Qorvo manufactures, they develop on our behalf and manufacture the assays for us currently. And we purchase them from them and then, of course, sell them out into the marketplace.
Got it. What's that conversation like with vets? Or do you tend, when you're going out on the sales trail, or your team does? I mean, you might still be doing that too.
I've been there.
So, what's that conversation like with the vets? Are they saying, "Hey, we're contacting you because we need this," or are you going out, vet to vet, saying, "Hey, these are the diagnostics that we have. Try these out," and then they come back to you to potentially get more?
Well, the conversation with the vet centers around the disease state and how they preferably would diagnose a particular disease like Cushing's or Addison's or hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. And so for example, with the TSH assay, we'll discuss the disease state and we'll discuss how the current assays available for TSH are all optimized for the canine patient, and how the dynamic range of that test does not include this sort of subtle differentiation that you really need to be able to tell what the situation is with the cat. So when they see that, then they say, well, this gives us the tools I need that I don't have now and can't get anywhere else. And so I no longer have to use, other tests that might point me or get me close to a diagnosis. I can use this one that will help me zero in right off the bat. So it's really around, the disease state and how this meets a need that they have in their practice. They don't really care about another machine or another assay just for the sake of it. What they care about is being able to perfect their diagnostic regimen so that they can be more accurate with their pet patients. And then, of course, I think the rather obvious benefit of being able to get those results right away is appealing to them, and we discussed that as well.
Got it. And then on the therapeutic side, I mean, is the ultimate goal that you want to have the therapeutics available for those same vets where say, okay, we have the diagnostic to show you that there's an issue. Here you go. Now here's the therapy. I mean, I'm sure that's probably the long-term goal. I'm sure.
Well, as you know, or as you heard me say, we have quite a substantial balance sheet, and we're looking to acquire additional technologies in the future. And I think the sort of unicorn out there in terms of a potential acquisition target would be a company that provided therapeutics for the diseases that we can uniquely diagnose. That'd be great. But a lot of times the diseases that we're diagnosing are things that are going to be best served by medicine, a prescription, some sort of a drug regimen, and we're not going to get into that part of the business. And so rather, the thing that ties everything together that we do is we are looking for products that will benefit first and foremost the pet parent, but also the practice itself. When we walk in to discuss with a veterinarian, what we really want them to do is say, well, I'm glad to see you, because every time you come with a new product, it's something that is good for my patients, it's good for their parents, and it's good for my practice.
So I wanted to take actually a little, maybe a baby step back, because there might be folks who are listening to this that are like, the animal health market, what I don't even understand from a regulatory side of things, how the heck that's different from the human health side of things. So as someone that's worked in both, can you tell us what is the main difference from that regulatory perspective?
From a regulatory standpoint, it's the difference for devices and diagnostic products that do not in and of themselves provide a diagnosis, but rather provide information, and then the veterinarian makes a diagnosis. It's night and day. In the animal health market, There is no pre-market approval required by the FDA. The FDA exercises oversight over animal health generally, but they do that sort of in response to issues that may appear in the field. So if, for example, a company launched a product into the animal health market and it proved to be unsafe or had some other issue surrounding it, then they would notify the FDA, and the FDA would then come visit the company. Other than that, we're of course regulated by FDA and other agencies with respect to labeling. Products cannot be misbranded or mislabeled, and so we take due care to make sure that all of that is in order. And frankly, I think the kind of people that work here at PulseVet and at Zomedica and PulseVet, and the people that I've met so far in other industries here within animal health, I don't think there's a single one that would ever take a chance on launching a product that they didn't know was super safe and effective. It's because I think first and foremost, people that work here are animal lovers.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that provides a real opportunity to move quickly in the market, something that's not actually possible in the human health market most of the time.
Right. So my next question, this might be a dumb question, but I've interviewed so many, folks that are working in animal health. I've never actually asked this one. So indulge me here. Is there a certain animal or type of disease within an animal that is the most difficult one to penetrate right now? Whether it's like multiple sclerosis in dogs or, something like that. I mean, is there something out there that's kind of like the golden goose that everyone's working towards?
Well, with my vast experience of about 5 months in the field, I'm happy to opine. I think just like in human health, cancer is number one cause of death of animals.
Right.
And so, that's, I think, the holy grail for all of us. Having said that, I think it varies a bit by breed, right? So some breeds are known to develop certain conditions or ailments that are essentially inevitable. And yet there are some treatments that I've heard about that would allow that animal to be treated almost, when they're a puppy, and then if they're a dog, and then not develop that particular condition going forward. So I think that's something that's very interesting to us. Not working on it right now in full disclosure, but having heard that, I thought, boy, wouldn't that be great if we could get that to be widespread. The PulseVet product, I think, is one that is very useful in that regard for the particular condition of osteoarthritis. Right. So there's a particular surgery, TPLO surgery, that some dogs, certain breeds often have to have. And it's very well established that if you have that surgery, you're going to develop, that animal is going to develop osteoarthritis after a certain period of time. And what we found, and there's a ream of clinical data that shows that this is the case, what we found is that treating the animal post-surgery with the PulseVet shockwave therapy actually prevents or at least delays the onset of osteoarthritis for a considerable period of time. So those are the kinds of things that we look for. But other than that, I think it's it's old age. We all pet lovers have all had that experience, unless they're little kids and haven't been around that long, and the conditions that are associated with that. So especially with the PulseVet product, being able to delay the onset of those or to relieve those, it's really gratifying for everyone.
Absolutely. So going back to the business itself,
Sure.
Based on the current products and services right now on both the diagnostic and therapeutic side, what would you say is the size of the total addressable market? And then what is your current market penetration right now?
Yeah, it's huge. Market is huge. There are about 35,000 clinics in the United States alone. About 2,400 of those are equine practices, and about 2,400 are equine and small animal mixed practices. So around 30,000 small animal clinics in the U.S. Penetration, PulseVet penetration is significant. They're in a bit over 1,100 practices in the United States, mostly equine practices. So if you look just at the equine practices and disregard the small animal, it's about 47% penetrated. If you expand to include the mixed practices and say, well, let's look at the total market there, it's 25% penetrated. So penetration is definitely achievable with this product. When we expand the market to include small animals, though, it's only 3% penetrated. So this presents a great opportunity for growth. It was the main driver behind us acquiring PulseVet. Just reaching 25% penetration in the total market, including now small animals, would provide an additional nearly 9,000 customers. It's like an 8-fold increase. Now in 2021, PulseVet produced revenues of roughly 12 million. So you multiply that times 8 and the revenues grow to 100 million for only 25% penetration. When you look at outside the US, generally people just take that times 2. So when you look at back to the US, the total addressable market for all clinics, if they all got a PulseVet device, we generate about $1 billion in capital sales and generate about 200 million a year in consumable sales. Because the PulseVet system is a generator and a handpiece called a trode that is preloaded with about 50 treatments and then needs to be sent back and recharged once those treatments are used up. And so each time we're basically reselling that trode every time they go through 50 treatments. So huge market opportunity in the US and equally outside the US. In diagnostics, all 35,000 clinics would benefit from a TRUFORMA instrument, in our opinion, once we have the assays for equine customers as well. And we're busy about that business, right? We see synergies between the two companies, between the two markets. So if you take 35,000 clinics, multiply that times the number of assays used by the number of assays we have available, and you come up with a very large number. However, penetration is currently very small because we just launched last year, and right around the third quarter of last year, we only have 3 assays on the market. As we grow, that penetration we think will be, obviously will grow with us, but currently it's low.
So one quick follow-up on that point, and thank you for that overview on the TAM. From time to identifying an assay you want to bring under the Zomedica roof to time to market, what's that average time look like?
18 months.
About 18 months?
Yep.
Yeah. From testing to then, or seeing if there's a mark, all that?
Yep.
Gotcha.
And when we consider it ready for launch, when we not only have an assay that we know can run on the machine, and do it consistently and accurately and so on, but also one where we establish the reference ranges and what those ranges mean to the customer. We do that through collaborations with universities, and we also then go out to clinics themselves. And we make sure that no matter if you're a university that are handling, generally using samples that they take out of their freezer and are handling them in a pristine university lab environment, but we also make sure that it works in the clinic where they're using blood and serum that they just acquired from the animal and maybe not as pristine, let's say, in terms of handling them. And so that adds about 3 months to the process after, theoretically we could get it to market, but we feel that that's important. And so, while it's painful during those 3 months to have an assay that works, but we take the time to make sure.
Absolutely. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but wanted to get that full picture. What does the competitive landscape look like? I mean, are there other folks competing directly with you, or is it more bigger players with, maybe small exposure or something like that?
Well, so on the diagnostic side, the competition includes primarily external labs that veterinarians use to obtain test results. But there are also a couple of companies that offer in-house diagnostic platforms. Providing the results at the point of care provides obvious benefits over sending them out and waiting to get the results back. So our competition with with reference labs is of a certain kind. We provide a significant benefit and so on, and our test results are as accurate as they would provide. And so we're really competing on the convenience and the time to diagnosis. With respect to other in-house diagnostics, our proprietary bulk acoustic wave technology provides reference lab accuracy, and it's been documented many times, and that's superior to any other devices on the market. Plus, the uniqueness of our tests in some cases allows significant differentiation as well. So it's a pretty attractive market for us.
Okay.
For PulseVet, like I said, I think there's a couple of other devices that resemble shockwaves treatment, but they just don't come close to the efficacy. There's been one of the things that PulseVet did that we really appreciate is over the years, they've generated a significant amount of clinical evidence that provides documentation of the safety and efficacy of the treatment. In the human health market, that's always the case. You always have clinical data. What I found, one of the differences in the animal health market is that it's rarely the case that products come to market with the clinical data. But having had that, I think is probably the main reason why PulseVet has become the worldwide market leader in shockwave therapy, because they have that data and they use that data to, of course, refine the product over the years. Got it.
What would you say investors get most confused when they, let's say they saw you present, or maybe even did or saw your presentation? What do they get most confused about when they think about Zomedica?
I think some investors, they don't appreciate the time it takes to develop and launch a diagnostic assay product and build a revenue stream, right? They might appreciate they probably don't have insight into the length of time it takes to develop it and launch it. But we could tell them how long it takes. And as long as we set the cadence up correctly, and we have a series of assays that are always under development, so that 18 months from now and 20 months and 24 months, we have assays coming online. But it's really the time to build the revenue stream that I think some people miss, right? On the one hand, the more unique your assay is, the better off you are in terms of getting entree to the customer and building a lifetime loyal customer. But there is also customer education that needs to occur. And it takes time to get that data out into the marketplace so that utilization increases. And that's why we sponsor programs all across the board for veterinarians in a number of different areas. We take a lifetime value approach to the customer. We're foregoing upfront capital revenue, and we're aware that revenue will build slowly, steadily, but slowly on a per assay basis. But we're focused on the future when dozens of assays are available, and we have built a installed base that is significant.
Got it. And so my next question is, what is then the thesis that, if realized, these are the inflection points that will lead to growth in shareholder value?
I think it's the things that we've talked about, right? It's first the growth of the installed base of the TRUFORMA diagnostic instruments, because as we build that base, we're creating customers for all of our future products in that platform, right? So when you come out with the platform initially, you have to go in and introduce it to the customer and talk about the things that we talked about earlier, and then they bring it in. And there's a cost associated with that, with the instrument itself and with the field sales taking the time and so on and so forth. But when we launch the next assay and the next assay and the next assay, there are no additional customer acquisition costs. There is no additional training required for the machine. It is, we expect it to be most likely, oh, you have another assay, great, how do I get it? And all of the assay itself is run on the machine. The results are provided to a portal that we provide them called Zomedica. And that Zomedica portal is updated. And when it's updated, they see new assays as they come online. They simply have to click another button and they get that new assay. And so the building of the installed base, I think, is one of the key inflection points when they see that. Development and launch, of course, of the additional TRUFORMA assays. penetration of the small animal market with PulseVet products is very significant. And I think that our shareholders will be very pleased when they see how we're doing with that. And then strategic acquisition of additional product lines or companies with complementary products, all leading to profitability.
So, not to use an analogy from a completely different sector, but it sounds like for the diagnostic side, it's like, okay, here, take the iPhone, and then you make it more sticky by continuing to add different apps on there, so that now, oh, okay, well, there's some use here because now there's all these different apps that I need. That's the concept basically?
That would be a very good analogy if Apple was the one that was provided, if they had a closed system and they were the only ones providing the apps and they got revenue each time those apps was used. Mm-hmm. And that's really our model, right? Is that no other assay can be run on our machine. As a result, we generate revenue from that. I'll tell you, it's like the classic razor and razor blade model where you give them the handle, you give them the razor, and you sell them the blades. And anyone that's gone to buy a pack of 5 blades for their fancy handle knows those companies are making quite a bit of revenue from those blades.
Right.
I mean, so they can afford to give us the handle.
Right. I mean, how much are the machines? I mean, what is the capital outlay to then realize the future potential when they take on the assays?
So we provide the instrument. That's what we call the machine, right? We provide the box with no capital outlay required by the veterinarian. Customer appreciation program. You take the box. As long as you're using our assays, you keep the box. And so we're foregoing that capital revenue.
Right.
And instead focusing on the revenue of the assays.
Got it.
And those vary based upon those vary in price based upon the utility, based upon the competitive assays that may be available, based upon the value that they provide.
Got it. All right. So the next few questions I want to ask you is a little bit more on the corporate side. Sure. you just brought up, looking at potential strategic acquisitions potentially down the road. So this next question has to do with capital allocation. How do you think about capital allocation? What does your capital allocation strategy look like for Zomedica moving forward?
Well, since we have a very solid balance sheet with substantial cash on hand, we have, as of the end of last year, we have about $195 million on hand in cash. We have plenty of resources to invest in developing the diagnostic business by building the customer base through the customer appreciation program. That's an investment in that business. And providing the clinical and marketing education support to the community to build utilization over time. Building the sales channel to expand the size of the field sales force, expanding inside sales capabilities, and using all of the technology that's available today to reach the customers. So we have plenty of capital resources to do whatever good ideas that we might come up with. We have the resources to be able to execute them. Having said that, our sights are set on acquisitions of additional product lines and/or companies that benefit pets, pet parents, and vets. And a substantial portion of our capital is earmarked for those efforts.
Very good. And how much, if at all, have your shareholders influenced your decision-making process?
So there's a classic line that all companies use as their mission, which is to build shareholder value. And of course, we're no different. But at Zomedica, we think that we do that. We live that every day. It means that the needs of the shareholders to see that additional value drives what we do. And we see our interests as synonymous. Now, that's not to say that we please everyone all the time, or that we see eye to eye with all of our shareholders on all subjects. An example would be, I think some shareholders would see our cash balance and suggest that we buy back shares because they think that would increase the share price. We see it differently in that we believe that a better use of our capital would be to utilize that to either market our existing products or acquire new and additional products and for the long term, that will result in much more growth in shareholder value over time. So we're not necessarily seeing eye to eye on all issues at all times, but what we are doing is very much in line with what that shareholder is looking to get accomplished, which is to build value in the company that they own.
I only have a few more questions left, and this is one that I'm asking everybody. What makes you what gets you up in the morning? What makes you most excited to be at Zomedica, running this company? And then, likewise on the other side, what's just a drag? I mean, no other way to put it, I guess. Just what's been a drag and what gets you excited?
Well, John F. Kennedy used to quote Aristotle when he said that happiness is the full use of your powers along lines of excellence, right? So this position requires the full use of my powers because there are so many opportunities that can be realized here. And excellence is something that you bring with you. With the team that we've assembled here over the last, well, there are certainly people that were here when I arrived, but we've actually added a number of senior leaders in the company over the last 4 or 5 months. And with the excellence that they're bringing, I can tell you that happiness is real, right? So I enjoy being able to work with others for a common goal, and I enjoy working with the people here. The drag, I think the same things that other people don't enjoy. We're located in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I just moved here not too long ago. It's cold and icy and snowy, but I look forward to the summertime. And of course, paperwork is not one of my favorite things, and there's obviously a lot of paperwork as well. But the days that are the most fun is when I can get out in the field and visit customers, or get to an animal health conference and visit lots of customers. So I think it's a combination of things, just like in any position at any level.
Listen, I'm the right answer was for things that are a drag would be talking to me, but next time, but so Larry, what does success, I mean, we talked about it a little bit already, but holistically, what would you say is success, and what does failure look like? Maybe start with failure, and then we'll have the positive note at the end.
Well, frankly, I'd like to think failure is not an option. And realistically, we have a very strong balance sheet to promote our existing products and to make acquisitions that will add to the product portfolio. So as long as we execute, we're in super good shape. I'm not saying that we intend to make mistakes, but that's life. And from time to time, we'll make a misstep or here, but we have the resources available to recover quickly if that happens, or as that happens, I should say. So not really too focused on failure, instead success. That's why I came, and that's why the people are here. Success is something we achieve every day by providing the tools to accurately diagnose an animal's condition, enabling quick treatment, or providing a shockwave therapy to a dog that literally couldn't run to fetch the paper anymore, and now it can. Success is executing our strategic plan to continue to build the installed base of TRUFORMA platforms and our portfolio of assays for the device. It's continuing to penetrate the market for small animals with the use of the PulseVet system. We're off to a really good start with that, by the way. And it's continuing to acquire product lines or companies that complement the other products in the portfolio. It's bringing those products and systems and initiatives and programs together where the sum of the parts is truly much greater than the individual parts added together.
What would you say what is the downside risk? When investors are thinking about Zomedica, or, asking those, devil's advocate type questions, what do you tend to tell them is the company's downside risk?
This company is potentially unique. It's certainly unique in the companies that I've been associated with over a pretty long career, in that we have substantial capital, right? You need to be able to succeed in the marketplace and to do well and avoid failure and avoid the downside risks. You need human resources, you need human capital, you need capital, and you need technology. And most times companies that spiral down, if you will, is because they've got plenty of ideas, right? But a good idea is a job half done. And what they lack the resources, whether they be capital or their human resources, to be able to execute a plan. And when that plan goes awry, or they encounter things that they didn't expect, that they don't have the resources to be able to recover from a setback, or to overcome an obstacle that might require more time or more data or whatever the case may be. In our case, we've got the resources to be able to do that. I think the downside risk is that there may be a scenario where we wouldn't grow as fast as we could have grown had we not done this or had we only done that. But if you look at, especially investors that are investing today, if you look at the share price, you look at the enterprise value of the company, they're not too far different. So it's not for me to say that the stock price is going to do this or that. It's going to do whatever the market delivers. But in the case of this company, we're going to successfully execute our plan. And while we're always looking at risks, the reason I don't have a good answer to that question is I've not seen something that can destroy value here. Right. So it's just a matter of the pace of growth. I will tell you that when I was doing my own diligence before I came on board with the company, and my wife is my partner in all things, so she likes to hear about what I'm, hearing and talking about. And I got off the phone, and she was kind of half listening to the conversation, and she said, "Boy, it sounded like there was a problem." And I said, "Well, yeah, there's a bit of a hiccup or a problem or whatever it was." And she said, "Oh, well, are you still going to take the opportunity?" We lived in Florida, and she was kind of wanting to know if we were going to be moving to Michigan after all. And I just kind of looked at her and I said, "Honey, there is no problem that cannot be overcome with $271 million in the bank." I mean, it just provides you with the luxury of being able to make decisions and execute them without worrying about a lot of things that could happen.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Larry, to close this out here today, this question, I ask it because, yes, you already explained, what you enjoy about being, leader of a company, being CEO, but there's that big difference between, just CEO of a private company and CEO of a public company. Now that you're the CEO of a public company, do you enjoy it? I mean, it's a lot, like I said, I joked earlier that one of the drags, you got to talk to guys like me. But, there's quite a few of us that you have to talk to, along with just your own duties of running the company on the day-to-day. So do you enjoy being a public company CEO?
In a word, yes. I grew up, so to speak, professionally at U.S. Surgical Corporation. It was a public company. I've run a public company before, earlier in my career, one that was in need of a turnaround. And the difference I found is, I'm not scared off by the Sarbanes-Oxley rules and regulations or whatever. They were put in place to make sure that our shareholders knew that they were getting good information, that they were receiving the same information, whether they were a major holder with an in the company, or they were someone in the retail market that just bought 100 shares because they love animals and they love what we do here at Zomedica. And so I think those rules are all in place for a good reason. And I don't have any issue with us being in total compliance with them. I think the other thing is that when you're in a private company, you still get the questions. You get them from investors that are much more concentrated and generally are not as happy with the answers, let's say. But I think that's not really been an issue. And so I enjoy what I do. Full use of your powers along lines of excellence. I'm a happy man.
Very cool. Well, Larry, this has been great. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Before I let you go, where can our audience go and find more information on Zomedica?
So our website is www.zomedica.com, and I encourage you to come check us out. We'd be happy to welcome you in.
Very good. Larry, thank you so much again. Really do appreciate it. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Thank you.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast.